So you all had a really interesting conversation about not just next steps, but things that are working really well for you, some things that have been challenging, and things you might not have really liked at the beginning of learning about, supporting the dual language learners, and things that have really become apparent to you. One thing that really stood out was that family language and interests interview, and using that as kind of your first step to get to know the children and really make that connection with the families. Kristen said it felt like invasive at first, right? It can sometimes feel like a checklist, but I think all of you have shown that you use it as a tool, and it's not a checklist. It's really a conversation starter, and so you use it as a nice thing to fall back on. So you have like, well, we're gonna do this interview, and then it becomes this conversation, this ongoing conversation that you have with the families on how you can support their child in the classroom. And it has questions that are not just about language, but about their family culture, right? So it talks about their hopes and dreams for their child, and what they want their child to learn from your class that year, and also like how they can support you in the classroom. So I think you all kind of expressed how that's a really great resource for you all. And you also talked about how important it is to be consistent and intentional, and use repetition a lot. And so talked about being really consistent with their home language. And you said something that really, I think, sums up, I think, everything that we've learned about pull and home language support for dual language learners. It's anything that can be done in English can be done in their home language. And so really talking about, translating songs. Sometimes it's hard to find anchor texts in books in different languages, but working with families, or, working with other staff members to translate those key words so that you can use that with them as well. So that, like Maritza said, she knows there's another language there. She knows it's another language. And so she's like, I need to find out so I can use these phrases with them, right? You want to make sure that child feels represented. You talked about having your environment labeled in the colors, and how powerful it is for the children to identify with the colors of their language. And so that's so important. I think it goes back to consistency about how the colors represent the languages, and the children know. Like, you share that with them. They know that when it's purple day and when it's, their green day, they know the days, and they know, they identify that language. And so they're prepared, and they know, and they're ready. And then that child, Kristen, in your class, who identifies and says, that's me, that's me. Like, he knows that this culture and that's his language. And I think that's so incredible, the connections that you're making just by something as simple as labeling our environment, right? And it can be intensive, and it can be tedious to have to go through and label everything, but it really is so valuable in supporting the child and the family, and supporting their home language, and showing them that they're valued and they have a place there. Really talking about the intentionality and communicating with parents. Eva, you talked about how important that is. And then planning. You guys talked about how you plan intentionally. You're really consistent, and it's all about, you include everything. You include your environment, like with your labeling and different things like that, but you also talk about your anchor texts and your vocab and your songs and chants, intentional messages. So moving forward, it sounds like you guys have some really great ideas of what you want to work on, specific things like working on songs and chants a little more. And it can be uncomfortable at first, right? But when you see the power of it, you can't help but to get into it, because you see how powerful that is for vocabulary and language development. So it sounds like you guys have a lot of really good ideas and next steps that you're going to take moving forward. Eva talked about recording songs and books for her infants and her families. I know we're in the virtual distance learning world right now. And Maritza was talking about using the interest interview form virtually. So the pull strategies and the support of home language that we've learned, it's not
It's not.
a one thing for curriculum, but it's really like, in general, it fits every setting and every scenario. And it's proven that it can be consistently used intentionally. So thank you guys so much for that conversation. You were amazing, and we appreciate you.